Concord might have been thrown into the furnace and turned to dust by Sony, but are they about to produce some form of sorcery and have the game rise like a phoenix from the ashes? If recent updates are anything to go by, Sony might just be daring to give Concord a chance at coming back, because a recent article from Insider Gaming detailed that the game has been receiving some updates behind the scenes, prompting some to think that Sony are planning on making a miraculous U-turn on the doomed hero shooter. So if we take a look over on Steamdb, we can see that there have been some updates behind the scenes. Looking at the depot screen, numerous build changes have been made over the past 17 days, with users PvE mode on the 2nd of October, playtest on the 4th, Sony QAE updating on the 10th of October and Sony QAE shipping on the 10th as well. With these changes making it possible that Sony doesn't want to just totally give up on the game, which if it is the case, is quite a strange move if I'm being honest. Concord was an expensive flop, with it taking roughly 7 years to develop and reportedly costing an eye-watering £400 million, which personally sounds too much to me and is an absurd figure. Either way, I think we can all agree Concord cost millions to make. The game crashed so hard that not long after its quick demise, Firewalk Studios, the developer of Concord, parted ways with their game director Ryan Ellis. So to put all this into context, the game was released at the end of August and had a measly 700 players on Steam and only sold around 25,000 copies between PC and PlayStation, which is ridiculously low. The powers at Sony were that unimpressed, they pulled the guillotine out and put the game out of its misery 2 weeks later, whilst issuing players who purchased the game full refunds. And if we know Sony, one thing they do hate doing is giving full refunds. So we know it was really bad. During its free open beta, the game only pulled in just over 2,000 players, which would have surely set alarm bells ringing straight away, because that is not a lot at all. It's a free beta as well. If you're only getting 2,000 players, you best be worried. That would literally tell you right there that people were really not clamouring for this game. The game originally cost players £40, which didn't help the cause at all, and even Ryan Ellis, the former game director, had to release this statement because the game flopped so hard. In his statement, he says, "Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC, and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. Your support and the passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, while many qualities of the experience resonated with players, we also recognise that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we'd intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning of September the 6th and explore options, including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchased the game for PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation Store and PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method." So as we can see there, that was a pretty bleak statement to be had, especially after a few weeks of releasing the full game. Now, I'm not a corporate shill, so I don't really care how Sony felt. What I do care though is about the developers. They've obviously poured a lot of time and effort into this, and for that to happen 2 weeks after, that must be soul destroying, because that is their job, that's their trade, their livelihood, potential job losses. I mean, Ryan Ellis even had to step away. Whether he got forced or not, we just don't know. That will never probably be disclosed either. But I do feel for the guys over at Firewalk Studios. But in that statement, he does mention that they are exploring options and they will determine the best path ahead for Concord, which does leave it kind of open-ended in my opinion. So if Sony does want to bring this back in some form, they would have to make this free to play for starters, because players didn't feel the need to purchase the game when it released, so they are not going to put their hands in their pockets now. And this begs the question, how will they fund it or make any money back if they do re-release the game? And the first thing that springs to mind is microtransactions, which, if I'm being honest, is probably their only option. Make the game easily accessible and try to create some form of in-game store that will entice players to spend some money and claw back a little bit of the millions of pounds they spent making this game. This does all seem extremely far-fetched though, because Concord was a AAA live service game that didn't make any money and will probably go down in history as one of the worst to be launched. If we are to link these background updates to the game being possibly re-released, then it shows us that Sony are extremely desperate to try and recoup some amount of money back, but this will be risky. The game didn't do any solid numbers at all upon release, so there isn't any guarantee that bringing it back, even in a free-to-play form, will do any better. I personally don't see much clamour for another hero shooter. There are already popular games in the market with the likes of Apex Legends, Deadlock, Team Fortress and Overwatch taking a huge share of the players in this genre. For me, Sony are so desperate to go down this live service route, they might be a bit blindsided by that. They had one extremely surprising success in Helldivers 2, which they nearly fucked up with the whole PSN account drama, which they eventually had to backtrack on because Steam players were leaving bad reviews in their droves and putting the game down, which was costing Sony money because players weren't spending any money inside Helldivers 2 and all of the negative publicity around that. But Sony clearly thought Concord would be the same in terms of success because otherwise they wouldn't have put so much money into developing this game. But as we know now, that isn't the case. The thing is, the live service genre is very cutthroat and more often than not, games will fail and you have to take your losses. Running Concord would be so expensive, with servers and a team to keep updating it, but time will tell. Maybe they rework the game to such an extent it piques everyone's interest, but I would be extremely surprised. It would take a monumental effort to get this game to lift up from rock bottom, and I just don't think it can be done. Reviews on Steam were mixed as well, with 30.9% of players giving it a negative review, and the charts were not great reading either, with an all-time peak of only 697 players over on Steam, with a very quick fall off as well, leaving the game to flatline at an extremely fast rate. It is not impossible for Concord to come back, but the level of rework to make the game more enticing and durable would mean Firewalk and Sony have a massive uphill battle on their hands. If they do manage to pull it off, fair play, but I for one think Concord should just be left to rest. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and if you have enjoyed the video, please tap the thumbs up button, and if you haven't already and feel like it, tap the subscribe button as well. But as always, take care and I'll see you on the next one.